This conference will now be recorded.
So today let us enter into the next module and very important module of Spring, that is Spring MVC module. Spring MVC module. The main use of going with this module is Spring MVC module is used to develop server-side dynamic web applications. For web applications. Okay. In this, MVC stands for Model View and Controller. MVC stands for what here? Model View and Controller. And the main use of going with this MVC architecture is used to make the model independent of view. MVC architecture is mainly for what? To make the model independent of view. Right? So what is this model, what is this view, and what is this controller, and how this MVC model makes model independent of view? Let us understand using a diagram. This diagram is important. During interview times also, they'll ask you to elaborate about MVC architecture. You can take the same example to elaborate about MVC architecture. Now, let us go with this MVC. So if you remember, in servlets, we have developed one login application. So we have taken one login application, like we have taken login.jsp. It's a welcome page where we have accepted the username and password and one login button. Here we have taken the text fields to accept the username and password and login button. Now, once we enter username and password, when we click on login, we have connected to a servlet, that is a login servlet. We have connected to a servlet, login servlet. So login servlet is what? It is a class. Say a class in which you manage some data, a class in which you do some business logic. We call them as model classes. We call them as what? Model. Right? Now, so when you accept username and password, when we click on login, it connects to login servlet. It's a class in which you manage some data, a class in which you do some business logic. We call it as model classes. Then what we have done in this model, in this login servlet, we have checked whether username is authenticated or not. Means if it is success scenario, we have displayed a message, login success, some message, okay, whatever it may be. If it is failure, we have displayed login failure. Whatever we display on browser screen to the user, we call them as the view part, the presentation part. Who is taking care of the presentation part here? Same login servlet only. So in the same model program only, you are taking care of the presentation also. There is no division of work here. Only one programmer is working. So that is a drawback with this application. Now, the other way of developing same application is when we click on login, we'll connect to login servlet. We connect to login servlet, your model. When the authentication is success, we'll connect to success.jsp page, success.jsp page, which is a view page. If the authentication is failure, we'll connect to failure.jsp page, which is a view page here. This is what a view page. So here we are dividing the work. One programmer can work on login servlet, one more programmer can work on success.jsp, one more programmer on failure.jsp. So three developers can work over here. Now the drawback with this scenario is, when you are writing the model program, we should know the name of the view pages where to redirect. Without knowing the name of the view pages, we cannot connect to that pages. So in this second case also, the model is dependent on the view part. The model is dependent on view. Without knowing the name of the view page, your model is incomplete. Now, the third scenario is, when you click on login, we'll connect to a class. We call it as login controller. Or login controller. It's a class. It can be a servlet or it can be a class. It's a controller. Whenever you make a request, it will go to controller class. Controller is going to invoke the model. Login servlet. This is our model. Controller invokes model. What controller is going to do? It is going to invoke model. Model will do the business logic. What model will do? It is going to do the business logic, and the result is given back to the controller. So in our case, we are going to return the result as success, a string value. In our case, success or failure. We'll return a string value back to controller. Now, based on the result what you have written, right? If it is success or failure, if the value of result is success, we'll connect to success.jsp page, which is view page. If the value of result what you are returning is failure, if it is failure, we'll connect to failure.jsp page, which is the view page. Now, in this scenario, the third case, when you are writing model program, we are not worried about the view pages. So we are concentrating only on the business logic, and we are just returning the results back to the controller. Based on the result, your controller is taking care of invoking the respective view pages. So in this scenario, when you go with this MVC architecture, model view controller, your model is independent of view. Clear all of you the MVC architecture? Right?
Yes, sir.
No. So very important entry question. The front-end controller in Spring MVC is dispatcher servlet. Very important entry question. Which is the front-end controller, or what is the front-end controller in Spring MVC means? The answer what we have to say, dispatcher servlet, which need to be configured. In web.xml file. Dispatcher servlet loads the Spring Bean XML configuration file. Who is going to take care of loading Spring Bean XML configuration file? Dispatcher servlet. In Spring Bean XML configuration file, we configure the controller classes. Controller class will invoke the model. Controller class will invoke the model, and model will return the result back to the controller, and based on the result, controller will invoke the respective view pages. So this is how your Spring MVC is going to work here. Now, so in order to use this Spring MVC, we have to just learn some annotations here. Annotations are very important. So the annotations are, which we call Spring MVC annotations. The annotations are @controller. The use of @controller annotation is used to mark the class as the controller class. Use it to mark the class as what type of class? Controller class. Like example, if you take a class login controller, to mark it as a controller class, above the class we have to use annotation @controller. Next one, @request mapping. @request mapping. Use it to map the request URL. Use it to map the request URL. Like example, we are going to create a form, action equal to login. The action name is important here. Form action equal to login. Here we accept the username and we accept the password. Then we go with one submit button. Input type equal to submit. When you click on this submit, see the action name login. The action name is important. So whenever you make a request, when you click on submit, whenever you make a request, it is going to invoke controller here. It invokes what? Controller. Once it enters into the controller class, based on the action name, we want to invoke the method. So we'll go with the method like authenticate. Go with the method name like authenticate. Now, based on the action name, based on this action name, we want to enter into this method. So above the method, we use the annotation @request mapping. What is the mapping name? Login. So based on this action name, it will enter into this method. The code in the method will get executed. Right? So these are the two basic annotations what we are going to use today, and we'll be learning some more annotations in tomorrow's class also. Right? Anyone, any questions up to here? Right? Now, let us develop the application now. Developing a Spring MVC application in Eclipse using Maven. The first step is configure Tomcat server in Eclipse workspace. You have to configure what? Tomcat server in Eclipse. So open Eclipse. Open Eclipse. Now how to configure server already we know. Click on Window, Preferences, Server. Under server, runtime environments. Click on Add. Then choose the server Apache Tomcat server version 9. Then say next. We have to provide the installation directory. So in our case it is C drive, program files, Apache Software Foundation, Tomcat 9.0. So any server parent folder of bin. Now select folder and say finish here. Apply and close. That completes our server configuration. Now the next step is create a Maven project. We have to create what? A Maven project. Let us do this step. Click on File, New, Maven project. Then click on Next button. Then here in catalog select internal, and here in this artifact ID now we have to go with this Maven-archetype web app. Now we are going to develop web application, so we have to choose web app. Click on next. Then it will ask you the group ID. I'm saying Spring MVC. Artifact ID means the project name, Spring MVC project, package com.spring.mvc. So all these three values are your wish. Then say finish, which is going to create the project for us, Spring MVC project. Now, how to create Maven project? Click on File, New Maven project. Click Next. In Catalog, select Internal. In Artifact ID, select Maven-Architect-Web App. Click Next. Ask the group ID. I'm going with the Spring MVC. Artifact ID, the project name, Spring MVC project. Then package com.spring.mvc. Click Finish. Creates a project here. Now, see, if you see the project, you are seeing error. If you expand here, under SRC main web app, we can see index.jsp. It's going with error. So if it is showing error under index.jsp, we need to do one small setting. That is, right click on project and say build properties. Right click on project and go to properties. Targeted runtimes. And make a check mark here. Make a check mark to this Apache Tomcat version 9. Say apply and close. That's it. The error under index.jsp will go off now. So what setting we have to do? If errors, in the project, right click on MVC project, go to properties, targeted runtimes, make check mark to Apache Tomcat server version 9. Click apply and close. Now, the next step, we need to add the dependencies. So here, since we are going to use this Spring MVC module, we need to add the dependency of Spring MVC. So add the following dependency in pym.xml file of Spring MVC project. So the dependency what we need to add is just to go to your previous pym.xml file of Spring project, take any previous Spring dependency, and come to this pym.xml file of Spring MVC project, and in between dependencies element we have to paste it. This you replace your Spring JDBC with Spring Web MVC. This one we have to add Spring Web MVC. So save this one. This dependency we need to add into the project. Today I'm just going to show about how MVC is going to work. We are not going to do any database connections here. So if you want to connect to database, we have to add MySQL and Spring JDBC or Spring ORM like that. So how to go with the database connections, that we'll see in tomorrow's class. So for now, a basic MVC architecture. Right? So this completes our setup now. Right? Any questions up to here?
Sir, what is the meaning of artifact? Artifact.
The type of project. Artifact means the type of project what you want to create. Whether it is a simple standalone application or whether you want to go with web application. Okay.
Okay.
The type of application what you want to create. That's meaning of artifact here. Clear, Ravi?
Okay. Yes.
Just a minute.
And this version numbers, it can be anything, or like it should be some proper version number this in the dependency.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Did you say the version numbers is like if you go to this Maven repository, if you go with any Spring dependency, you can see the versions here. See 6th version.
Okay.
This is the latest one. So you can find 5 versions. You can find 4 version like this. Okay. So you have to take it the version from the Maven repository. Okay. Just a minute. I'm back here. Now let us develop the application. So with this, we complete the setup. Now let us go with the welcome page first. Create a welcome page. Login.jsp in your project Spring MVC project /src/main/web app folder. We create the JSP files in web app folder. Now right click on web app folder and say new JSP file login.jsp. Design the form action equal to login. And since we are going to accept the passwords, we are saying method as post. The username, input type equal to text, name equal to username, password, input type equal to password, name equal to password, and one submit button. Input type equal to submit, value equal to login. So when you click on this login button, the action name say login. Remember this, the action name is login. Now the next step, whenever you make a request, it goes to what? Controller class first. It will go to controller. So let us create controller now. For that, create a folder Java in src/main folder. Create a package com.spring.mvc.controller in src/main/java folder. Create a controller class. I'm going to create a controller class login controller in package com.spring.mvc.controller package. The package names are your wish. Login controller. What we need to do now? Under src main, right click on main and say new folder Java. Now see the folder will come like this src/main/java. Now right click on src/main/java and say new package. I'm going with the package name com.spring.mvc.controller. Under this package controller, right click and say new class. Right click and say new class. I'm going with the class name login controller. We're going with the class name login controller. Click finish. Now, how to mark this class as controller class? What annotation we use to mark it as controller class? @controller. Okay, let us create a method here. Public authenticate. In authenticate method, to enter into this method, based on the action name, I want to enter into this method. Then the annotation what we use @request mapping. That's the mapping name login. Once we enter into this method, in this method I should read this form data. Username, password we should read. How to read the form data? Do you remember servlets? What we use? HTTP servlet request. By using HTTP servlet request object, we can read the form data like this. String username equal to request.get parameter of username. String password equal to request.get parameter of password. Once we read this username and password, now give this username and password to model class, the action class, where we do the business logic. So say now string result equal to login action dot verify user. To this I'm passing our username and password. So this we call invoke model or action or service class. All the meanings are same. So first we come to controller to model. So login action is a model class, action class with a static method verify user. To this I'm passing our username and password. This method will check whether our user is authenticated or not. If it is authenticated, the value of result will be success. So we check here. If the value of result is success, then we'll connect to success.jsp page. Else we'll connect to failure.jsp page. It is success.jsp, else failure. How to connect is by using a class return new model and view. It's a predefined class in Spring. Return new model and view. To this we need to pass our the view page here. Else return new model and view failure.jsp. This also invoke view. Now, what is the return type of this authenticate method? Model and view. This is the return type. Import the packages. Now when we connect to the success.jsp, I want to send this username value. To this page. How to send is simple. Just say comma, the parameter name and the value of it. So it takes a parameter name as username. So to this parameter username, I'm passing our username value. So we can even send the data to the respective view pages. This completes our controller. Here all of you the controller class. Right? Now let us go with the model class. Now let us create model class. So for that, create a package form.spring.mvc.model in src/main/java folder. Now create a model or service or action class login action in com.spring.mvc.model package. right click on src/main/java and say new package form.spring.mvc.model, and in this package right click and say new class login action. In this, let us go with a method string verify user, which takes two arguments, string username, string password, string username, string password. Now we have to check if username dot equals admin. My username is admin. Okay, I'm just going with hard coded here. If username is admin and password dot equals admin. So if I enter username as admin, password as admin, will return the result as success. Else will return the result as failure. Right? That completes our model here. Now come back to controller and import the package part this. Keep mouse pointer on login action and import this. Okay, import your package. So we have done with what? Verify user. Any spelling mistakes? Okay, let me save this. So we have done with controller and we have done with model. Now we are left out with the view pages. Let us create the view pages. Create a view page, success.jsp in web app folder. Success.jsp. Now create one more view page, create a view page, value.jsp in web app folder. Now let us create this view pages under web app folder. Right click on web app and say new JSP file success.jsp. In this, we'll go with the message welcome, and I want to take the value of username. How to take percentage equal to request.get parameter of username. Here from controller, when we are connecting to the success.jsp, we are passing our username. So I'm taking the value of this username parameter, which is the username what we have entered. So how to take that? By using the expression tag request.get parameter username. There. To create one hyperlink, click here login.jsp here to login. We are creating one hyperlink here. So when you click on this hyperlink here, it connects to login.jsp. Now create failure. Right click on web app and say new JSP file failure.jsp. Here we'll say login failure and we create hyperlink ref equal to login.jsp here to login. That's it. Okay, so that completes our view part. So anyone any questions up to here? No. Let us do the next step here. What is the front-end controller in Spring MVC? Dispatcher servlet. The front-end controller in Spring MVC is dispatcher servlet that we need to configure in web.xml file. So our next step is only one-time process, update web.xml file to configure Spring MVC front-end controller dispatcher servlet. Let us update this dispatcher servlet in web.xml file. So open web.xml file located in web.inf folder. Then go here with the tag servlet. Servlet name. I'm going with the name Spring MVC. Any name XYZ. Servlet class. What is a class here? Dispatcher servlet. This dispatcher servlet belongs to the package org.springframework.web.servlet.dispatcher servlet. Load on startup. Load on startup 1 means when the server gets loaded, it has to load this dispatcher servlet. Now, coming to mapping, servlet mapping, servlet name Spring MVC, then URL pattern. For any URL pattern, this class should get loaded here. There. Now the next and very important step here. This is the very important entry question. How dispatcher servlet knows? I said dispatcher servlet will load Spring Bean configuration file. Spring Bean XML configuration file. How dispatcher servlet knows what is the name of the Spring Bean XML configuration file? Okay, that is a very important entry question. So now the next step, the last step, create Spring Bean XML configuration file, Spring MVC -servlet.xml in web.inf folder. So we have to create what file? Spring MVC -servlet.xml in web.inf folder. So why the name like that only? How dispatcher servlet knows the name of the file is Spring MVC -servlet. How it knows this file? How it knows is here say here what is the servlet name we have taken? Spring MVC. So this name it is going to take. So this servlet name it is going to take Spring MVC -servlet. If our file name is ABC, here if servlet name is ABC, then what we should write here? ABC. Here we should write here ABC-servlet. So what is the servlet name we have taken? That servlet name we have to take and say -servlet. This is very important entry question. I'm documenting also the name of the Spring Bean XML configuration file should be servlet-name -servlet.xml, where servlet-name is the servlet name given in servlet name element of web.xml file. What is the servlet name? That name we have to take over here. So this is very important one. Got it, everyone? Right, now let us create this. Right click on web.inf folder and say new other XML file. The name should be Spring MVC -servlet.xml. Now, just to take the template, I'll be sharing this Spring MVC configuration XML file template. Same, the root tag is beans. The root tag is same beans. See, the code is simple. The code is completed also. Here in this component scan, the base package, we have to just give the package name. We have to just give the package name where controller classes are present. See here, I've mentioned that in base package, provide the package name where controller classes are present. So in our case, where is the controller class? This package com.spring.mvc.controller. That package name we have to provide. Now when you run the application, what will happen? Whenever you make a request, first it goes to web.xml file. Web.xml file will load dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will load Spring Bean XML file. Identifies the package name where controller class are present. Goes to controller class. How it knows this is controller class? Using @controller annotation. Based on the action name, this method will get executed. In this method, we take the username password and we give that username password to action class. Action class will do business logic, returns the result back to controller, and based on the result value, we are going to the respective view pages. So this is how Spring MVC is going to work here. Okay, so looks bigger, but the advantage here is division of work. We can divide the work, and even during maintenance time, means once the project is given to the client, when the client asks you to modify the requirements, or when the client adds new requirement, adding that new requirement or modifying the requirement will be much more easier. The maintenance part, which we call, that will be much more easier for us when we go with MVC architecture. That's main objective of this. The final step, run the application, login.php. Let me change the browser here, window, web browser to internal. Come to login.jsp and run this as usual. Select the server, Apache Tomcat server version 9, and make a check mark. Always use this server when running project. Say finish, which starts the Tomcat server and displays the welcome page. Now go with username admin, password admin, and when I say login, some error. Okay, HTTP servlet. I've taken HTTP from JavaX only. Let us do one more way of doing this. So instead of going with this HTTP servlet, to read the form data, we are having one more way of reading form data. So that is @request param. Request param username, and I want to store it into string username, comma @request param password. Let me take it into password. So this is one more way of reading form data. So these two lines are not required now. These two lines are not required. Now let us import. Now let us run and check it now. 1 second. So enter username, password, the login. Same. So it's going with this jakarta.servlet.http servlet. Let us change the version and check it.
Sir, I think there is some issue in the version 8 and 9. to this import.
Okay.
I searched on Google. There is some issue with the version between 8 and 9 version related to this import.
Right. Yeah, that's the reason I've changed the version of this MVC here. Okay, now let me run this. Now enter the username, password. It's saying, see, welcome admin. Now click here to login. When I click here, it will go back to login page. Now if I go with something like ABCD, and when I say login, it says login failure. Click here to login here. Okay, just have changed the version over here. So when you are facing some problem, maximum cases, there will be version problems. We have to go with the trial and error basis, change the versions, because some of the versions will not support some of the things here. So when you browse in Google, they'll be letting you know which version to be used. Okay, based on that, you can change the versions. Right? So please practice this compulsory, very important one. MVC architecture, you should able to elaborate what is this MVC architecture. So I'll be keep on using this MVC architecture in the next classes also. Right? Tomorrow we go with one more very important module, Spring Boot module. So in that again we go with MVC architecture, and even we go with this one, like we'll connect to database. We'll connect to database to do the database operations. So that also we'll be discussing in tomorrow's class. Right? Thank you all. Thank you very much.